Anyway, welcome to today's MSPs in Conversation. We are talking marketing, driving business growth through simple yet effective marketing techniques. So we've got Crystal and Mitch joining us, and we have lots of questions to run through. Probably not enough time. We never do have enough time. But as always, this is recorded. So please feel free if you do have to jump off. Please feel free to share it afterwards as well. We cut this up into a YouTube video podcast. It's available on Spotify and everything else. If you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will try and answer them as we go. If you think we are talking absolute craziness, let us know that as well. All right. So very quickly, as always, an introduction to Hosted Network. Hosted Network is a wholesale cloud and telco provider for Aussie MSPs. We started as an MSP ourselves, so our value proposition to you is that we think like an MSP. We're 100% wholesale and we have no customers at all. We're entirely feedback driven. Our whole business has been built based off feedback from over 250 Aussie MSPs. And quite frankly, we like to get shit done. So, if you would like to talk, feel free to reach out to us after this. But we are not here to talk about Hosted Network. We are here to hear from our wonderful panelists. Crystal, Mitch, thank you for joining us.
No worries.
No worries.
Crystal, could I get you to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So it feels a little bit funny, but my name is Crystal Jameson. Says it on the little corner and on the screen. So I run we like to call it a marketing agency, but it's not a true agency, called One Little Seed, which essentially offers marketing manager as a service for businesses in the IT channel. So we have a number of MSPs on our books, full disclosure. Mitch does happen to be one of those. So we have supported Mitch and his business for 4.5 years, I feel like. It gets a bit murky and, you go, are we still really doing this? But we are. So I've been in the IT industry my entire career. I've worked in distribution, I've worked in vendors, and I've worked in the channel. So, that is our sort of unique position. Works well for, organizations like Mitch who, they need marketing, but let's be honest, most MSPs don't need a full-time marketing resource, right? So they need somebody that can come in, look at the business in its totality, have some robust conversations about what is good and what is not good, but then actually going and executing it. So that's our little shtick.
Cool. Well, thank you. And thank you for joining us again. Mitch, if you don't know Mitch, please.
Hi,
bit of a drum roll.
I'm Mitch Colton. I own Colton Computer Technologies. We're a bog standard MSP based in Central West New South Wales. Have 30 staff. We're 19 years old in November. That's pretty much us.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you for joining us today. We will stop the share and jump straight into it. So let me get my notes up here. All right. So, Crystal, I'm going to throw this first question to you, if that's okay.
Sure.
Because I'm going to treat you as our resident marketing guru for today, for the hour that we have you. Can you tell us why you feel that marketing is important for MSPs?
I mean, I feel like Mitch should actually take that because he's the one.
Well, Mitch can chime in.
He's the one who's input us. Look, I think, if we talk about MSPs and, a lot of MSPs in this industry are owner-led, are owner-operated, right? And, as a business, you can get to a certain point, and I think the phrase that Mitch uses is owner-led sales will get you to 5 mil. That's correct? Yep, he's nodding.
100%. Yep.
But then how do you get to the next stage? How do you grow your business outside of the network that you've built? Referrals will only get you so far. And, what we're also seeing now in the buying world is you've got, let's be honest, you've still got boomers. You've got the guys who, and I'm going to talk about a lot of the MSP guys who are, the owners who are older generation, they've been doing this for years, they've built really successful businesses, and you've got people who are in those decision-making spots and clients that are the older generation. We were just internally having a conversation about how, we need to go and hire somebody younger who is more au fait and more comfortable with things like AI. And so you've got.
I thought you were going to say TikTok.
Well, we don't advocate for TikTok, but we advocate for video. But this is the thing, right? Is you've got, a 50, 60-year-old, and then you've got sort of a 25-year-old. How they consume content, how they research is hugely different now, right? And you've got, these Gen Zs coming through who actually, until they're ready to purchase, don't want to talk to a real person. So how do you reach those people in the world that, I'm going to be honest, I grew up, you would pick up the phone, you have a phone conversation. Like, there's a whole generation that don't answer their phones, who don't subscribe to emails. Like, they are getting their information from ChatGPT, from social media, and just the channels that, I'm going to be honest, never existed when I started in this gig. So how do you expect people to know who you are and go searching for you if they don't know who you are at a fundamental level?
Yeah, cool. Mitch, what do you think is important?
All of that. I remember back to the day I rang KJ the first time. Not the first time, but the first time about my problem. And my problem was we were only at 2.8 mil, 2.9 mil, something like that. Our problem was we were really good at engaging with the clients that wanted to engage with us. And this goes to exactly what KJ was just talking about. But we had a whole pile of clients that didn't actively reach out to engage with us, and we wanted to be able to engage with them at a one-to-many level. And so our start into why we believed marketing was important was 80% better engagement with existing clients. And the happy accident is we'll probably get some new stuff fall in the top of the pipeline. Fast forward that to today, same thing, but and this goes into I guess what we'll probably cover later, which is what success looks like, which is we get 2 or 3 leads just fall out of the sky every month. And that's the reality of having a good, consistent marketing engine, is you get some leads that just fall out of the sky, and then you go and do your sales thing with them, and happy days. But I think it's just I don't know, and we sort of found it's the glue. It's sort of like you have your operational glue, which is your service team and PS and all the rest of it. But marketing is kind of like your front end CX glue that sort of ties together between sales, account management, customer success, a whole lot of those different pieces, product development and marketing, sort of the thing that holds all those things together.
I think, and I also think, oh, sorry, Ben. I also think when we talk about, and I know that it's also a future question and we're just following the bouncing ball at this point, but when we talk about a lot of MSPs, and what we say to a lot of MSPs when we start engaging them with them is, we are there to make you look as professional on the outside as you are on the inside, right? Most MSPs have built an amazing technical team. They are really good at service, but you look at their capability statement or their sales collateral, not going to lie, we're starting to work with an MSP next month. When, partner awards and alike, their capability statement, if you put that in front of a Gen Z, it's 26 different font sizes and colors. And, it's not, if you don't know this organization and you look at that from a brand perspective and polish perspective, they're just going to go, well, you can't format a Word doc, or you can't give me a brochure. So how are you going to know how you fix all my problems?
Interesting. Yeah.
And given that more and more of the purchasing decision is being made before they're talking to you, that whole what you look like on the outside is getting more and more important. I mean, I guess one of the things we accidentally did that was good marketing back from since forever is we have a fleet of really nice sign written cars. And even though that's not the thing that usually is the reason you get the client, the thing you say is like, oh, how did you hear about us? Because, trying to find out where a lead came from is impossible now. And they're like, oh, we're not sure, but your cars look nice getting around town, and we see them getting around town a lot. But it's just another touch.
And you're right. I guess marketing in general is, to your point before about being the glue, it is more than it's that multi-touch approach, right? I know I talk to a lot of MSPs that join our topics, our webinars and whatnot on marketing, and it's usually purely from a lead generation, but it is more than that.
And there's a huge conversation now about also where you should spend your marketing budget. Brand versus lead gen versus demand gen, or whatever you want to call it. And that comes back to the, people say, oh, we found you on Google. But what were they searching for at that time to find you? Like 9 times out of 10, it can be a happy accident. People aren't going and searching for Colton computers straight off the bat. They've potentially seen them, popped up through social. In Mitch's case, all the activities that we've done have led to people going, right, I'm now ready to have a conversation, so I will Google Colton.
They need to have a pain point, right?
Yeah.
And when that, you can't necessarily control when they're going to, well, you can't, I guess you could. We're in IT, that's a bit risky, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's a bad sales strategy. They do need that pain point, but you need to have that lead-in journey so that they're ready and they know who to call when they have that pain point. I often say within hosted network, if a prospective partner is dealing with someone else, I like to say, that's okay. I'm okay to be your number 2 because I know eventually you'll give me a call because you're aware of us, when you need to, and that applies to all businesses, right? It's marketing is as much about awareness as it is lead generation, right? So starting right at the beginning in that sense, let's assume most people on the call don't have much marketing experience. So where do you think they should start?
I'm assuming that's directed at.
Well, I was just going to see who answered it first, really. But
I mean, I guess I'll start because I'll tell you a bit of my journey, and I think
cool. Okay, perfect. Stories are always great.
To my point, when in the intros, I own is a bog standard MSP. There's 2 things that are ironic about that. There's not many bog standard MSPs, and no one knows what an MSP is. So there's your two problems out of the gate. I think one of the big problems, certainly, like when we were small and we started to dabble with marketing, it's that, are we just doing some advertising? Are we just doing some sponsorship? Are we trying to do a lead gen thing? And it's all very disparate and usually reactive. The biggest problem I see, and I see this even across a lot of my clients, there are a lot of marketers around that go, we do your socials, or we're B2C. They don't ever say they're B2C. They say they're marketers, but they only do business to consumer. And B2C is very different to B2B. And we know that in our own businesses because, I'd be interested to see how many people on this call go and target end users versus how many people on this call go, I don't know, never want to see another home user ever again. And really, I just want, 10 plus seat managed services clients. And I think, we started doing the socials thing. We started doing, it was a lot of reactive, bitty stuff to see what stuck. And I think the biggest problem there, and this is not what to do, this is what not to do, was it was never long enough and it wasn't the right sort of activity. I think the biggest, the best thing we did was just go, we're going to start at a point, we're going to throw some money at it, we're going to be consistent, and we're going to give it 12 or 18 months. And then when we get to the end of 12 or 18 months, then we'll look back and go, okay, what worked, what didn't work. I think a lot of businesses in general in the SME space put way too much energy into social media compared to anything else. And while social media is part of the mix, I don't think it's the main thing. KJ,
no,
tell me different thing.
No, I don't think it's a different thing. I think the challenge with where to start with marketing is exactly that question, is where to start, because people get overwhelmed by all the options, right? And then they go hell for leather and try to do everything at once. And that's why the wheels fall off and they go, it's not working. And I think it's important that, my catchphrase is, if there was a silver tap for leads, I would be sitting in the Bahamas drinking pina coladas, not sitting on this webinar, right? We are, when we come in, we are upfront. We are 12 to 18 months before you will see that consistent volume of leads come in, because we've got to set the foundations. We've got to start. Now, if you can't afford somebody to do it for you, or you just want to give it a go yourself, I would say pick something that you can be consistent at, right? And that could be social media, right? It could be going, I am going to do one post a week for the next 6 months. But what I say to people when we talk about that, and I have that conversation with the business owners, and they go, but it takes so much time. I said, but if you sit down and you spend 2 hours writing 6 posts, you can schedule them, right? That is then not set and forget, because you should probably look at the comments. But social media can be this huge black hole because people have not got structure around it. They're not saying, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to spend 2 hours. If I create 6 posts, great. If I create 12 posts, great, right? But those 2 hours, you sit down and you schedule it. So you're not constantly having to think about it, because then if you get comments, you'll get a little notification, right? But you've got to decide what is achievable. With Mitch, we honestly, we started with 1 blog post a month, thought leadership, supported by social media, and then looked at what we could do around the business chambers that, were unique to his area, that we could look to build the profile of both Mitch and the business, right? Because, and when we're talking owner-led sales, those 2 things are intertwined. I'm going to be honest, I am an owner-led business. I'm trying to disengage myself from the brand of the business to my staff, right? And this is where we have to get to a point. It's also letting go, right? And going, I need to trust somebody to do this for me. And that can be scary as shit when you've been in a business for 10, 15 years and it's your baby, right? And it's just,
totally. And the thing there too, and this is the maturity, operational maturity levels, and growing up. It's you as an owner know your business backwards, upside down, inside out. You elevate a pitch it without even thinking about it. You can talk to a capability statement without even having anything written down. You can probably architect a solution on the fly, work out what the client's pain point is, wrap it up and say, oh yeah, that'll be 30 hours on the end. Here's a quote, thanks, done, the end. You can't offload that to anyone else like that, and nor do you want to offload that to anyone else like that. And this is, again, back to my marketing glue conversation. When you know what your, and a lot of the marketing journey we went on and are still going on is, defining target customer profiles, defining what good looks like in a client, defining all of those things.
The foundational bits.
Yeah, exactly. But you don't usually start with those bits, even though they're the foundational bits. And then as you grow, like in the 4.5 years I've been working with KJ, we started off as we were a MSP come break fix shop. We made the decision probably 2.5 years ago now. We, over this course of 18 months, big marketing campaign, big sales, account management, whatever, we dumped 50% of our clients. We went in and going, this was on the back of when NCE got announced, because that was just like the final straw of, we're going here anyway, but this is a good time to rip the Band-Aid off. But there was a whole lot of comms to clients about, hey, we're now going to 100% managed services. These are the reasons why. This is why managed services is good for you. This is why we're no longer going to do break fix. And we want, we from the outside, we did the numbers internally and going, we're going to burn a lot of clients here. But from the outside, it was all, we want to take everyone on this journey with us, and this is the journey we're going on. And if you want to come with us, we would love to have you. But if you don't, and that's totally fine, we'll help you find a home that's more suited to you.
Yeah. And we'd identified clients also that we thought were not going to react well to that and kick up a fuss, so we spoke to them first, to kind of smooth the waters. They all jumped on board, right, in terms of move to managed services when we didn't. But you're always learning by mistakes. Marketing is not a paint by numbers. you know, if I look at a marketing budget, and I apologize in advance, there is a little bit of profanity about to come, but we split it up into
Oh, I haven't even got started yet.
I knew
into
having you two
thirds.
here would be great.
Yeah, into thirds. You've got a third of the budget that goes on things that you know that work and you will continue to do. Then you've got a third that kind of sits on that bubble. You're not entirely sure, but you've probably got somebody who goes, that really works, but you haven't tracked it properly. So you've got things that are on, you know, on the bubble. And then you've got what we call the fuck it, we're going to give it a go budget, right? Because it's something so different, so left of field. But unless you try, how do you know whether it's going to work or not? And some of those left of field ideas can turn out to be the most successful.
I often refer to it just as putting a stake in the ground. You kind of just need to, and then learn.
Yep.
Fail, learn, and just that cycle repeats.
Yep.
We've actually got a
Don't
question.
be afraid to fail fast.
Well, fail fast, right? 100%. It's a cycle and that's the same with everything, right? You look at whether it's a service desk process, you know, getting your text to log timesheets. It's the same thing. You kind of learn as you go. You know, that's a whole nother can of worms, which we won't go into today because it's a sore spot for everyone.
We've been there.
We've got a question here. So what is this is for you, Mitch. What is a reasonable marketing budget, and what was your criteria that made you sign up? I'm assuming that's with Crystal, but yeah, what was your marketing budget? Or how did you come up with it? I think
didn't
it's probably more
exist.
targeted.
Like, and the reality is when most people start in marketing, there are no tangible outcomes. Like, and that's half, I think that's half the battle that we struggle with. I mean, I'm in IT Nation Evolve. You know, we get all the SLI stats on what percentages you meant to spend on what and all the rest of it now. And sort of now we can track it. But at the time, you know, and when most people start out, it's like, you know, it's like,
give it a go. Yeah.
Yeah. But look, I would say now, you know, I'm looking back more with a mature grown up view of this. It's something that you can afford that is reasonable. In saying that, I wouldn't even bother getting started if you can't throw at least $1,500 a month at it, $1,000 a month at it. Because but you've got to pick a number that you can say I can afford to spend this amount of money every month for the next 12 to 18 months and get nothing back for it.
And I think it comes to also the value that you perceive from it. Like Mitch says it's $1,000 a month, and I go, I don't know what you would get for $1,000 a month if I break it down. But there are providers out there that will go and you pay a subscription service and they will say, here you go, here is content for $1,000 a month, right? But that content is not written to your tone of voice. It has not got what your unique selling proposition or your differentiator in it. Like it's factory content. You will always find a solution that works for the budget that you've got, because doesn't matter what industry we're in, MSP faces it, there is always a race to the bottom.
There's always someone that'll do, there's always someone that's going to do $30 a month managed services.
Yeah, do you want to be that person? Yeah.
No way.
I think the other piece of it, when you talk about that factory content as well, if you are looking at going on the lower end of your budget, is like David Vidos has just posted in the commentary, that you've got a whole bunch of other MSPs that are doing the exact same thing.
And right? I would say, and I guess I accidentally was doing this from ages ago, and now I don't accidentally do it, I deliberately do it. And I was talking to some guys at Edge last week about it. I think one of the best things, certainly one of the best things that I've done, and I've disclaimer here, I'm the vice president of the Orange Business Chamber, so I've conflict of interest. Sign up to your local business chamber. It's not a B&I group. That's different. That's out of the scope of today's conversation. But join up to your local business chamber. Get involved in your business community. And don't walk in there being like, when are you going to buy something from me? You just go there and be a part of a community, because fundamentally...
Consistently attend, be part of a community.
Yeah, this is the biggest thing in marketing. Do it consistently, but you're getting your brand out there, you're becoming known, and going back to what KJ was saying before, like your fuck it, give it a go bucket. we went, fuck it, we're going to go and put on some exec lunches. We've got our insurance broker and I do a fair bit of collaborative marketing stuff. And we just went, we're going to put on a lunch for, 10 to 16 people at a nice restaurant in town, bring them in, sit them down, and we're just going to have a chat. Levi, who's my insurance broker, he's got a list of things that he wants to talk about. I have a list of things I'd like to talk about. At the end of the day, it's pretty much IT, current affairs. We just invite some clients and prospects. We have a lunch. That is like one of the best things that we've done. And that was like just give it a go. Yeah.
And I think the hardest thing, being a marketeer is that I constantly saying you need to be prepared to give nothing. Oh, sorry, you need to be prepared to give value for nothing, expecting nothing in return, right? Because this is the process, right? This is building trust. This is building your brand. The minute this comes to people still like to gate content. We all know what happens with our email address, right? As soon as we put it into a form, I actively, but yes, I'm a marketeer, will go and see if I can find that without a gate.
That's actually a lesson that we faced with our marketing is, and we did content big in white papers around the COVID period, and we put it behind a gate, and we were like, in the end, we were like, why? We want people to read it and get it out there more, and but that's a lesson, right? You learn that as you go. Guys, I want to pull back a little bit to the topic of thought leadership. Crystal, you mentioned before that most MSPs are owner-led organizations, and you're 100% right. That brand is not just a business, it's them.
Yes.
So how do the techie owner-led, organizations become, a thought leader that is not seen as the tech guy? Or maybe that's a good thing.
Well, I was going to say that could be a good thing. And Mitch never believes me, but I am always get it back to front, an introverted extrovert. So I am the type of person that, like this week I'm at conference, like I will not talk to anybody except my husband because kind of contractually I'm obliged to do that over the weekend. But I did a presentation with Mitch at Evolve. I hate getting up in front of people, right? I know my industry inside and out, but as an owner in a business, I know that is what I need to do. And one of our core company values is get comfortable with the uncomfortable, right? And that's where it comes back to, what can you do that is consistent? Is it, if you don't want to be in large groups of people, is it building a social profile, and simple things like every time you meet a person, I do it, send them a connection request on LinkedIn so they will start to see your content. Or if you are a true extrovert, it is going to every business chamber meeting once a month. But also find a perspective and stick to it. Like, what is your position on XYZ, right? For us, it is very much that, if you look at my LinkedIn, it is that this marketing shit is hard, right? Selling it to business owners that you need to invest in us for 12 to 18 months before you get a real return. Why would you? Like, everybody goes, oh, I can engage a telemarketing company who will give me, 20 leads. Let's not talk about the quality of the leads, but coming back to that, that thought leadership is, what is your perspective? What can you build your profile on and start engaging with people on either debating that, because a good, healthy, robust debate is a great thing, or that you get into a room with, 3 or 4, other business owners like Mitch has done with, the insurance broker going, right, we're talking about cyber, but you need the insurance piece of it as well. Just find that thing that you're also a bit passionate about, and it doesn't necessarily have to be tech related.
Yeah, for me, I hate social media. I suck at it. It takes me, every time I post, I reckon I rewrite it about 10 times. Even ChatGPT doesn't help me. I struggle.
I'm working both social media. I'm absolutely terrible at it. I'm a pick up the phone and go and see people, and
That's our generation as well, though, right? Like, Crystal, you mentioned before that, but now we've got to start marketing and, selling to a broad spectrum of people. That becomes more and more difficult. Mitch, can you tell us a little bit about your journey, but in terms of becoming a thought leader, like
what's
within
my
because I see
life?
online you're heavily involved in your community.
Um,
It's how
the
did you
biggest,
start that?
it's been to KJ's point. It's just being passionate. Like I was in Dubbo yesterday at a business chamber event in the morning, and then I went and saw a client, and we were sitting doing, I guess, a bit of a IT strategy session. But really, it was interesting because and this has purpose, so bear with me here. So my account manager got a phone call from their IT contact this morning being like, we have never seen our CEO give an external contractor that much time before ever in the history of ever. We went into a meeting, we sat there for an hour and a half, and what I would call shot the shit. But the reality was, it was me debriefing on what I'd seen at Edge last week. It was me debriefing on what I'd seen in data security and compliance space. It was talking about, some workflow automation stuff that I've seen that's coming. It was talking about, what's happening in the economy in Dubbo. What am I seeing in Orange? What's going on in the business landscape in general? But those are all topics that I'm very passionate about talking about. And the thing is, even though you're in it every day, and like to KJ's point, you're in marketing every single day and you're in the IT channel every single day, it becomes normal to you. And things that you hear and see, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm hearing that for the 56th time. Your clients and your prospects are not in those industries and are not exposed to that, and they're fascinated by it. And I think I guess that's the culmination of it. But the reality of it, like, and one of the things I still get the most joy out of, of my MSP is just going and looking in the side of other businesses and being like, oh, how does that work? Oh, why do you do that? Oh, that looks cool. Oh, yeah, and it's having a genuine interest, and then you help people solve problems, or you give another perspective, And I love a good debate as much as the next person, and I think it's just, it's consistency really. My problem is now, how do I scale that in more one to many instead of like that 1 to 1, 1 to 2, 1 to 3. It's how do I get that into one to many? But did that answer the question?
I think it did. So my takeaways, from that, obviously consistency so far, we've covered that, heavily. And I think from a cost perspective, looking at things like chambers and whatnot, that's a good place to start. And I think what you're fundamentally
$200, $250 a year. Like it's the cheapest. It's the cheapest.
Just starting there.
Yeah, exactly.
But consistency is important. But I think that my other takeaway from what you just said is have a business conversation. Not necessarily, it doesn't always have to have IT. Everyone's, you're in business. They've got pain points. You've got pain points. And just have, that alone moves the conversation
ground. And I think two things, and this is like the IT specific side of it. Business owners are generally, and let's just assume and hope that they do, they're happy to talk about risk. They understand risk. No one cares about, like, not that they don't care, but they don't understand and they can't connect with cyber. And remember, you're in an industry, like to KJ's point, marketing's hard because I'm selling someone to give me money, and a fair bit of money consistently every month for 18 months with no return, potentially. We're going, hey, buy some more security controls, buy some more security controls, buy some more security controls. Oh, then you've still got to get cyber insurance, and then you're still probably going to get hacked, and we still need to go to charge you to go and deal with the PR and the cleanup and the incident response. So that's not sexy, that's not exciting. People don't like talking about that. But you start talking about, business risk opportunities, what's going on in the market and all of that. And then when you're having those conversations, you're working out, that's like 2 days of PS consulting there, and there's a project, and there's a thing, and there's a thing. And when you go and talk to the client, or the prospect comes to you, or you're talking to an existing client, and they're like, oh, so what do you reckon we need to do for next quarter? It's like, well, I've talked to you for the last 3 quarters about A, B, C, and D. Which one's the most important? Oh, okay, A, sweet. I reckon we can do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That really
And I think
crosses
the
over
biggest,
into this. Sorry, you go.
I was going to say, but I think that also comes back to you have to be your own biggest research advocate, right? In terms of consuming content, finding a position, don't need to name the two vendors that have had issues in the last 2 weeks, but it is my job to understand the consequences that that will have. And we even, I shared as soon as I saw it, the Medibank ruling in terms of, the government came out and named the
MSPs.
MSP that was in it. What are the consequences of that for our industry? Like that is huge. And if I don't know what that is, that all for me, right? And I go, every MSP should be reading the notifiable data breach reports that come out, every 6 months and going, right, which vertical is currently flavor du jour for hackers? How do I take that message to my clients? You're not saying, oh, because you're in health, you need to do X, Y, Z. You're going, you should be aware that this is the industry that is being targeted. There is so much information out there for you to, pitch a 10 and go, this is what I'm going to talk about consistently.
And I think it all ties together because we get a lot, and we get it from the techs as well as myself. We go and talk to clients about, we have our conversations with clients or at business chamber meetings or whatever. And a lot of that is what drives our blog content. Because we go, oh, I've had 6 conversations, with a client about data retention. I'm looking at my blog. But, we're talking about where data lives, data retention, retention policies, how much stuff should we keep? Like, we're having a lot of those conversations. It's like, well, there's next month's blog.
Yeah, I mean, one blog content for Mitch came out because we are also a client of Mitch. Mitch is also.
This is not an incestuous webinar at all.
No, it's IT. It always is.
Yeah, Mitch is our MSP. I went to share a file externally with a vendor because it was MDF reporting. And I wasn't going to email it because it contained PII. It contained a recipient's email address. And I pinged Mitch and I went, why can't I share? He goes, oh yeah, Microsoft have changed the rules. I was like, well, that's shit. How do I share data? He goes, oh, we can change the policy. And I went, yeah, that was the answer. It was put a ticket in and we'll change it. But I said to Mitch, how many organizations would not pick up the phone and just go, I can't share that, so I'm going to email that?
Yeah.
Right? Healthcare, legal, and then they email it to the wrong person. The number of, I don't think my name is, particularly common, but the number of emails I'm starting to get that start with the name of KRI, where I go back to these people and go, I don't think this is meant for me. But that's human error, right? So that became a blog post because I've picked up the phone and gone, wait.
I think the other side of it is as well that you don't necessarily have to be, you can be the conversation starter, and asking the question, whether the answer already in most cases, whether you're in person or whether you're, it's on social media. Oh, I wonder how this is going to turn out. I think those sort of being that thought leader, and I think that for, the more introverted personalities, that's often an easier approach rather than sort of going, this is my big opinion. You don't always have to do that. You can just be part of the conversation. Guys, moving the conversation on a little bit, speaking of conversations, we've talked a few things around what works, and I want to sort of hopefully touch on a few tidbits around that but just quickly, what are some of the things that you would, if an MSP was, or any business, that they should avoid if they're starting out? What are the time and the money sinks?
Google Ads.
Cool. Yep.
I was going to say big one-off sponsorships for things, or like if you go and pour a shitload of money into sponsoring an event that you think is going to be good, don't. If you don't have all the rest of the stuff lined up to actually get value out of that spend, and that's probably where you're going with advertising in general, isn't it, KJ?
Yeah, because Google Ads, LinkedIn ads, like since COVID, the cost per click has just gone through the roof.
Very competitive.
And that is and that is where unfortunately, you need to learn by experience, and it's a very expensive experience to learn what's working and what's not.
Anyone on
Rich's
the
point,
call that's had a bad experience with pay per click, I'd love to put a comment in the chat if you wouldn't mind, just out of curiosity. If anyone's had a win, I'd love to hear that too.
There's a question about the metrics now, like Google Analytics for
Well,
marketing.
yeah, that ties into that quite nicely, right? So, why beyond the cost is pay per click why would that be a bad approach, Crystal, in your mind?
I think because one, it is hugely competitive, right? And Google, full disclosure, we don't do SEO, right? It is a specialist skill, but I'd say we know enough to be dangerous and hold, SEO agencies to account. And I've also got to be honest, in the nearly 6 years that I've been doing this, I have not yet found a good, consistent SEO agency for B2B that doesn't charge a retainer of $5,000 a month to get up just in the morning, right?
Yeah.
SEO, everybody goes, well, I'm just going to go managed service provider, Newcastle. Who's looking for a managed service provider as a Google? Like, think about how when you Google something, that's not what you're looking for, right? And so that's the common mistake that people make is I'm going to pay for words that I use, that I think, right? And that's when you need to put your customer hat on and go, what am I going to get from this, right? And if you've done your organic SEO right, you shouldn't need pay-per-click.
Mitch, from your side, you mentioned sponsorships, and we certainly, coming out of COVID, hosted Network, we threw a bunch of money on at sponsorships, and we just tried to see what's stuck and learn very quickly. We had a year we knew we were going into it, a year of this is going to suck. Let's see what we're going to learn. But why, in your mind, are sponsorships a bad idea?
I think sponsorships are a great idea.
Cool.
I think the problem is, and I see a lot of businesses do this, and I see this from being on the other side, like running events through the chamber and looking for sponsorship. And you see some like, I guess, startup smaller businesses, and they'll come and they'll take like the $5,000 a hit, $7,000 a hit sponsorship slot. That's it. That's all they do. They think that they do that and they'll get leads at the end. They might, but the reality is, when you're doing sponsorship, you're doing it for, to KJ's point, like it's brand awareness activity, but you need to be doing it as part of a larger mix because, you need, what is it, KJ, 17 touches?
Yeah. So
if you've blown, if you say you're a small MSP, and this gets back into the dollars, right? And you say, I've got $20,000 a year, let's say 25 grand, 24, because it's a good number for a year, 24 grand a year to spend on marketing and advertising. And I go and blow $15,000 of that sponsoring 3 events. I've got nothing else. Like, I don't have a lot of money to spend on anything else for the year, and I'm not going to see ROI on that. Whereas you're better off to be taking the $1,500 sponsorship slot on, your local business awards or your whatever, because your logo's still there. Like, it's not that big, but it's that big. But you only spend an eighth of your, less than an eighth, but you only spend a 12th of your budget.
We're in IT, we're not in maths. That's okay.
No, that's fine. But coming back to its point, it's where you choose where you are in your maturity cycle, whether events are a good thing or not. So we've got one client, new logo, new messaging, new website, new marketing CRM, processes in their sales tool. That means that for the back half of the year, we are event sponsorship heavy because we want to collect new names. But we are very clear that those new names will not turn into revenue for 24 months potentially. Because that is the first touch, is that event. You still then need to build the trust and you need to follow up. So there has to be structure. Whereas if you go and do the event the first thing and you don't have a good website, you don't have collateral, you don't have a strategy where people can find you, then you've just blown that money.
So foundational components are important before you kind of get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're interesting stat from our side to share what we track a lot of what we do in marketing very closely. We find it typically takes between 3 to 4 interactions through a sponsorship, right? In addition to everything else. So that 17 touch points is totally true. And that's obviously MSPs, but realistically we're all businesses. And that's a lot of the time it's just being, face to face. It's that interaction. It's seeing the car on the road in Mitch's example. Those things that they add up.
Yeah. And it's also important to talk about the fact that you're not just talking to one person in an organization. If we're talking about those larger scale purchases, which, employing an MSP are, that buying group can be anywhere from 4 to 5 people to 9 people, And
Wow.
when we're talking to MSPs, and they may or may not be on this call, but, I was talking to an MSP, about our services. Their buying group was 4 people. And I had to convince 4 people. Like I had one conversation with one guy who's like, yep, great. And then I found out that no, actually, I needed to go and meet and convince all these people in this one business that we were a good investment.
I remember when we ran our MSP, I often said to our team, I was like, keep the office manager and the receptionist on side, because they were basically the ones that were going to make or break. If we didn't keep them happy, it didn't matter whether, if we were only interacting with the owner, the decision makers and those influencers. So a lot of other layers that we don't necessarily think about. Guys, we haven't gotten through half the questions that I wanted to, but can we just talk a little bit? I'm not even talking. We've gotten through 1/8. Mitch, is that where we're going? 1/8. Anyway,
6, 7
maths again. Who knows? We talked a little bit about tooling very briefly there. From a foundational, and you don't have to sort of go into particular products, but what are the key types of things in terms of tooling that a business, whether it's an MSP or not, needs from a marketing perspective?
Rock, paper, scissors, who goes first?
Yeah, Crystal. I'm going to chuck it to Crystal. There you go. I should MC more.
So without going into names, this is pure marketing hat, right? This is not sales hat. You need to be able to, look at the performance, and there's sort of almost a suite of tools. And there was a question about Google Analytics, right? So yes, I mean, by default, if you should have Google Analytics. Like if you don't, you're failing at the first hurdle. But you need to be looking at things like dwell time. You need to be looking at returning visitors, and you need to be looking at your bounce rate, right? Those are the 3 functional Google Analytics metrics you should be looking at, because that's telling you how long people are spending on your site. Your bounce rate is whether they're actually people who are coming to your site for the right reasons, in terms of they've Googled something, they think you're it, oh shit, you're not. And so they bounce out. Returning visitors tells you that people are interested in what you're doing, right? From there, you should have an email marketing tool, and whether you choose to combine that with your service desk tool or not, there are, whether it's, Datto, whether it's ConnectWise, they've all got marketing plugins. You can all send critical comms. Yeah.
Some are less shit than others.
Yeah.
Yes, very much so.
But you need to be able to have a way to communicate with your clients. And what I would say is, if you've got a marketing CRM, and we talk a lot about first party data, you can start to build profiles of who is, visiting your site because they've clicked on one email somewhere along. It's that tracking, it's that building that first party data. What that does need to feed into, and they can be 2 separate systems, or if you've got a shit ton of money, you can go get HubSpot, where your leads automatically flow into the sales process, or you have a robust handoff process. But, from a marketing perspective, Mitch has got, I'm going to be honest, 2 disparate systems, but we make it work, right? And so we've got a marketing CRM, and then everything else sits in ConnectWise. But there is a lead sort of handover. We know how many phone calls Mitch is getting, because we have that dialogue going backwards and forwards. But Google Analytics. If you've got a marketing CRM, you can get cheaper CRMs for like 20, 25 bucks a month that allow you to put a tracking pixel on your own website. That means you're collecting your own data in terms of returning visitors, building behavior profiles, and the like. And you do need a sales CRM.
Cool. Well, Mitch, I'm hoping you can add a little bit around the sales side and extend
Yeah,
that piece of it.
we're actually doing a lot of work, like following on from what KJ said there, from between marketing CRM, and then we're at the point now because we're building our sales team now. And at the moment we sort of fleshing out in what we're doing in ConnectWise from the sales process through, but building a fair bit of automation backwards and forwards between the two CRMs so that we get the right data flowing through. And then likewise, if a client offboards or staff members leave or whatever, we need to push that back to the marketing CRM so we're not sending comms we don't want to send to the wrong places. Look, that's probably this from a base tooling point of view. That's about it, really.
We often see a lot of people working at a spreadsheet. Is a spreadsheet a suitable place to start? Is that okay?
You've got to start somewhere, right? I'm not
Cool.
gonna
Okay.
I'm not gonna judge, right? And
something's better than anything. Like I used to track leads, and sales leads until like 3 months ago. I have my personal OneNote that I live out of every day, and I literally have a column in the middle called sales leads, and I have a list of companies person the last time I talked to them. Which, if you're a sole person and you don't have a sales team, that's totally appropriate.
I am the builder's house. I have a whiteboard with a list of my prospective customers and my wait list. And I run a marketing organization.
Well, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So, guys, we have 7 minutes or so, so not too long, but practical tips or closing tips from each of you. If even if we're recapping a couple of the things, Mitch, what would you think what are your kind of closing tips or recommendations?
But certainly, like when you're in owner-led sales land, networking will get you, more bang for buck as an owner. Building your thought leaderships, that does more to help build your foundation for when you grow up and you can go and get a good agency than anything else will. And it doesn't just stop there. And be consistency. Consistency. That's Mitch's magic sauce to marketing.
I think there's a new tagline: Mitch's magic sauce.
Yeah.
So anyway. My one takeaway as we move along is everybody's got to start somewhere. You can be overwhelmed by marketing. Just pick one thing to start with, right? And become good at it. Whether it is that, thought leadership position, and, that's what you're talking about, whether it's social media, whether it is, doing, one blog post or one email to your customers a month, just break it down. It's like that, those sort of motivational things you see where there's like a whole bunch of stairs and they go, it's not the end goal, it's just taking that one step, because that's all it takes to start. And then when you see what happens because of that, you feel motivated, you feel this is actually worth it, and I think the only other thing I would say about social media is don't get hung up on likes, right? It is impressions, it is, and the LinkedIn algorithm will reward you more the more you post if you are consistent, and you get this little motivational thing going, hey, your impressions took off by 1,300% this month, that you go, look at me, right? But that just happens because you're consistently posting, right?
I'd add to the social media piece of it as well, but particularly LinkedIn. Think of everything as a database. People that you interact with, be it chamber or networking events, add them to LinkedIn, because when you do post and things like that, you're getting more coverage. Mitch, you were going to add something?
I was going to say, and it's sort of to KJ's point about reward, the best thing, the two things that make me the happiest about my marketing is the fact that I only get 2 or 3 leads a month from marketing, but fuck me, they are TCP on exactly what I want. And then from a sales point of view, if I close one of the 3 or 1.5 of the 3, like, that's feeding our sales pipeline and is awesome. The second thing is it's so much easier when you're talking to prospects and and I'm putting my sales hat on now and you get through the sales. When you've got, 4 years of really good blog posts and you can just be like, oh, hey, we were talking about this thing, link, 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 talk about this thing, link, link, have a read, because the read will get the client or the prospect to, I guess, a base level of understanding. And then you can add so much more value in your conversations. And it's really good positioning, promotes thought leadership, all the rest of it.
Compounds over time, right? It's kind of like
exactly.
Word of mouth, right? The longer you've been in business, the more the clients you've got, it kind of compounds over time. Guys, we are nearly at time, but we've got a great compliment here that this should be a podcast. It is, but that this should be an MSP marketing podcast. So there you go. Speaking of podcasts, though, is there any resources that you would recommend that the audience can go, that you guys like to follow, whether it be podcasts or great books or anything like that?
So there is a guy by the name of Dave Gearhart. I think that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, so he has spun up, and he's calling it a media company. It's called Exit 5. You can find it by Googling. You can find it on LinkedIn. It is all,
at some point.
Yeah, it is all B2B marketing advice, right? So he gets experts along, different industries. But in terms of tips, what they're seeing, well, that is great. I also really like Steve Kiernan. I really like the Canalys research, like in terms of what's going on in the industry, spending guidelines, trends, buying patterns, etc. You can just give Stephen Kiernan, and the name escapes me right now, but there are a couple of guys, Jay McBain, who I follow on LinkedIn, for just, that down in the weeds. They are a channel research company.
Cool. Mitch?
Just for your topical stuff day to day, I listen to the Business of Tech just because my commute to work is about 7 minutes. The podcast goes for 7 minutes, and that's my headlines for the day.
Cool. Well, guys, thank you very, very much. Today, I've really enjoyed today's chat. I'm always love talking marketing. We have a bunch of different marketing ones that we've done over the years. So feel free to check out our events page on our website. You'll see all of our previous MSPs in conversation there. Whether it be about improving customer experience, building great teams, all sorts of topics. It is also a website now. We've turned it into a website, MSPsinconversation.com, which we are doing a terrible job of marketing, which I will have to listen back to some of these tips. But Crystal and Mitch, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Guys, until next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.